Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show. Yeah, it's been a while, but since it's been a while, I thought I'd bring in I don't know if I call him my old compadre, my regular compadre, at least during the football
Yeah.
season, former Ohio State All-American, consensus All-American linebacker, Super Bowl champion, NFL player, Matt Wilhelm. Welcome back to the Tim May Show, my friend.
Always good to be with you, Tim, and excited. Again, we live football out 24/7, 365, so there is no off season.
Yeah, you don't like to admit that to people because I do play golf a little bit. I spent the last week at the U.S. Open as a volunteer, and the people who know me know that ad nauseum that I really enjoy going over there to wherever it is. I've seen four great golf courses in a row, including Oakmont, and wow, man, you the guys that are members there. I stood next to a member one day when they were playing there, Matt, and I said, I don't, we were talking, we struck up a conversation, and I said, by the way, I said, I really don't understand you guys who are members here. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, because this place, the way I read about it and stuff, is harder when you guys are playing than it is now from the standpoint of how fast the greens are and things like that. I said the rough isn't quite as high and stuff. And he says, you know what my favorite thing, I've been a member here for like 25 years, 30 years. My favorite thing now is not playing the course, but is having somebody like you who I might invite to play it and watching their reactions as they
Yeah,
play it. And I
of
go,
course.
and I took that as an invite. I got his name and number. We'll see if it happens. But the point is, dude, this was a golf course that you could take any hole and dig it up and move it to another golf course. And it might not be the signature hole on that course, but it would be the hardest on
Yeah,
almost any golf course you can imagine. And it was relentless, one after the other, especially because of the high rough and stuff. And I know you've been under it. You even tried to sneak into it one time and got
yes,
rebuffed because they were playing the U.S. Amateur there a couple of 3 or 4 years ago. You were going to go in and get a shirt or something, but they wouldn't let you in. But
yeah. Well,
it's
Tim,
legendary, right?
I saw a fun stat yesterday about the Oakmont golf course that you're talking about. So, this past Masters in April had, and again, the numbers might not be exact, but you'll get the basis of what I'm going for.
Yeah.
Like 238 three putts at this 2025 Masters in April. Oakmont, which oh by the way are some of the purest, most undulating, lightning fast greens that the players play
Slope,
each and every year in year out
stimp meter.
at the Masters at Augusta.
The stimp meter was invented there. Go ahead.
Correct. But at Oakmont, this
Oh,
past
wait a minute.
U.S.
Excuse me.
Open,
I thought you were talking about Oakmont there. Yeah, go ahead.
no, so 238 or some three putts at the 2025 Masters in April, which again,
Yeah.
undulating fast greens, the fastest greens these players play,
Wait a minute, man.
year in year out.
I'm gonna get interrupt because people really criticize me because I interrupt so much, but that's just me. I once when I covered that tournament back in 1984, I referred to them as potato chips. They look like
Yes,
potato chips. Now go ahead.
yes, no. But this past U.S. Open at Oakmont, which you were just referencing, like 525 three putts. So almost double the Augusta greens, which are the fastest, most undulating greens that these players play year in, year out. And now in a U.S. Open at Oakmont, it's probably once every 8 to 10 years,
Yeah.
but almost double the amount of three putts. So it just goes to show. I know the rough was a thing. I thought what else was also very enlightening was ahead of the tournament actually starting maybe on Wednesday after practice rounds. I saw a video of maybe 6 to 10 pros, and they were being asked, what would a 20 handicap shoot on this course in these conditions? So a 20 handicap should shoot around a 90 to a 94, right?
Yeah.
On average.
Yeah.
And most every pro player threw out a number of 130 plus. Like,
Yeah.
and some may even said like 150, 160 is what they would shoot under those conditions with the rough, with the greens. And it's just, again, an amazing tournament, but that's what's to be expected year in, year out at a U.S. Open site.
Yeah, it's just amazing that basically even par was in essence the cutoff. I mean, Obviously, I
Yeah,
think what JJ Spawn ended up -1, I think, with
he
that
did. He did.
ridiculous putt at the end. But it's amazing if you stand there and watch grown men who practice this sport every day, some of them 5, 6 hours a day, just be number one. I think the rough, by the way, before we move on to talking about Ohio State and college football, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do that. But I have a compadre here who also is intrigued by golf. I thought the rough was over the top. Pardon the pun. I mean, I thought it was stupid, over the top, because I helped kind of help point out, for example, the guy that finished second, the guy from Scotland, whose name now escapes me. I'll think of it in the middle of our conversation about Matt Patricia. But I kind of helped point out where his ball went in the rough on his last tee shot on Sunday because I happened to be standing right there. Really nice guy I was talking with there who's helping spot. That's probably why he missed it. And also JJ Spawn, I was standing about 20 yards from him when he hit his second shot, which he pulled, pushed off into the rough to the right side. And I just thought it was too punitive, for want of another term, because you're trying to, and what they're trying to get you to do is chop the ball back into play and then play your next shot, take your medicine. But of course, these are pros. They're going to try to advance the ball as far down the course as they can, as Hank Stram said, matriculate the ball down the course and try to get it done. And it ate up some guys. But man, the guys who hit it for the most part on the short stuff, the really short stuff, uh, they were the ones at the end of the week that were playing for the championship. Sam Burns, and he did get, for want of another term, screwed on not getting relief from casual water on that one hole. As I went back, I was there at the course, didn't see it then, but when I saw the replay of it the next day, I went, yeah. I mean, when you put your foot down and water comes up, that's casual water, right? So
Yes.
all kinds of things, good and bad. JJ Spawn had his bad luck at the beginning of that last round. Sam Burns had his bad luck at the end. JJ Spawn ends up being the champion. I picked him on Saturday night to win it anyway, so I felt kind of vindicated. Kind of like when I picked you guys to win the national championship back in 2002, and then you mistakenly thought I was Mark May.
Yes. Yes. I was going to bring it up if you didn't.
It was still one of my favorite moments. Man, you got me mixed up with my brother from another mother.
That's right.
Mark May, who grew up hating Ohio State and
Yes.
carried through. Hey, anyway, let's get into number one. You were on a national championship team. The lucky thing for you was, as I referred to it, it was a walk-off national championship for you and the seniors on that team, or the guys who moved on. A bunch of guys came back, obviously. Ohio State should have been, could have played for another. Just think of it, if it was definitely nowadays, they would have been like the fourth or fifth seed in 2003, even though they had that loss, right?
Correct.
And,
Yes.
but you got to walk off from it. The guys who've come back now, it's quite the challenge because they're like even Caleb Downs has said, Caden Curry, all these guys. Hey, forget about last year. This is in so many ways a brand new team. There are a lot of familiar parts back, but 8 out of 11 are going to be new starters on defense, and you lost your quarterback. In a couple of prime three offensive linemen you counted on at certain parts last year that made it happen. So, what is that challenge you think for this team, Matt? I mean, number one, how cool was it to walk off and not have to have that burden on you? Because immediately the question is, after you win one, the question is, can you do it again, right? But
sure.
Go ahead. That's about 8
Absolutely. Of course, again, I get asked all the time, which championship meant the most to you, the 2002 national championship or the 2010, Super Bowl. And I will always say, as an Ohio kid, that and also I'll say the 38-year void of a national championship, for our Buckeyes, just made it very fulfilling. And being an Ohio kid and winning and choosing to stay in Ohio, go to Ohio State, and then win a national championship, that's one of the big boxes, along with a degree and playing the NFL and beating Michigan and winning the Big Ten. That's the ultimate. And I think that's what you've actually kind of heard from some of the guys who got drafted on Media Row, or doing their rounds is, who would you rather? Would you rather beat Michigan or would you rather win a national championship? And I think, given the circumstances for those seniors who did not beat Michigan but yet won a national championship, it's very satisfying. And in some cases, Tim, I'll be honest. Given my sons and this whole recruiting thing, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point, it's
Yeah.
like I also just wish, like, maybe in 2000 or 1999, I didn't blow my red shirt, when given the opportunity to play kind of a lot as a freshman on special
Yeah.
teams and spot duty here and there on defense on a bad football team,
Yeah.
that went 6-6 and didn't go to a bowl game. In hindsight, I was like, man, I should have just, bide some time and rolled that into 2003 and been a big part of a potential repeat. Again, all this is in hindsight, but it's going to be tough. And I think the one thing that I will also say to Buckeye Nation about this team is, there's something special about that 2024 team because of how many guys came back and stayed to see this through. Yes, they would have loved to beat Michigan, but they saw it through and won a national championship, and that's something that no one's ever going to be able to take away from them. But on the flip side, like, the current landscape across college football is, and I'm just in talking to recruiters and in talking to coaches, is you're remaking a roster almost every year because, those two portal windows and the recruiting high school players and how many were high school players and picking spots and paying guys and so on and so forth really has a feel of a different team. Now, this is going to feel like there's a massive void because of the Will Howards and the Jack Sawyers, the JT Tamoliaus, that, like, those guys that are emblazoned in our brain of the last 4 years of what they've done in a Buckeye uniform, and now they're not going to be here. So that's going to feel weird.
Yeah.
But just like anything else about Ohio State in general, going back to, since you started covering them and since I played there, is you don't rebuild, we just reload. It's that next guy. It's the Caden Curry. It's the next guy up. It's the Julian Sayin. It's like a very talented player either waiting their time behind a guy or just coming in as a young guy and earning that opportunity. There's going to be a lot of new faces, but we as Buckeye fans have to know that Ryan Day and Mark Pantoni and these guys, are extremely strategic in who they go out and recruit and who they go out and get into the portal and I say in some cases to be plug and play, but then also even sort of kind of being around the program this past offseason, here and there is they're not just throwing around the Buckeye logo and expecting kids to come.
Yeah.
They're recruiting a specific kid that fits this program. And that's you got to love ball. You've got to want to come to Columbus, Ohio. You're going to have to learn about the history of Ohio State football. In some cases, faith, given what a role that had with, crew last year.
Undeniable.
That's still a mark of this locker room.
Yeah.
And so to have someone come in to have to fit that and want to be a part of that, because that's not probably going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Right.
It's not just throwing out offers to kids from all over the country to come to Columbus, Ohio. It's being more strategic and choosing the right kids that fit this to, keep moving the initiative forward with Coach Day and this entire staff. So it's, but that being said, it's not just Columbus, Ohio. This is happening everywhere. Texas and Penn State, they're going to have their guys that return that are going to be, have name recognition, but there's going to be a wave of 5 to 6 starters that are going to have to step up in new roles for those given football teams to help go, chase a national championship for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, they also, we talk about chemistry, blah, 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 and it's not blah, 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 but et cetera, et cetera. There we go. Better term. You got to be a damn good football player too.
Yes. Oh, there's no doubt.
Before they even look at you, in that regard. Hey, real quick before we move on, because I want to talk about your son, Mason. Very interesting developments in his life and in your life, as it turns out.
Yes.
But as you sat here coming out of spring, I don't think you and I talked after spring ball. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think we did.
We did not.
But from what you've understood, and you keep your ear to the ground and stuff, as they get ready to go into fall camp, obviously they're working out, they're doing their summer workouts and stuff. The summer camp is going on, tryout camps and all this stuff are going on. But what is your biggest, in a nutshell? Let's don't make it a 10-minute soliloquy because you and I are both capable of that. What is your biggest concern about this team, about the starting lineup, or excuse me, about the lineup or about the roster? What is you, Matt Wilhelm, a guy who's seen football teams in all kinds of forms or fashion? What was your biggest concern coming out of spring and headed into preseason camp?
And again, it's not a concern about any specific player. I think for me, it's going to be a concern about a position.
Yeah.
And that position is the pinnacle position in all of football, which is the quarterback position. And while
Wow, I thought you were going to say defensive tackle.
nah, I'm gonna go a little bit more advantageous.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead, man.
And the reason why I say it is it's not that we don't have a guy or guys that we believe can go do it. It's just how unproven these guys are.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is, Will Howard coming in as a transfer played a lot of football before he ever put on a Buckeye uniform.
Yep.
And then leads us to a national championship, right? And so we're getting a kid who's, 4-star, 5-star level, started somewhere else, had the opportunity to come to Ohio State, now stayed and is earning his opportunity to play, in a little bit of a competition as well. But it seems as if Julian Sand at this point is probably going to, if we played a game tomorrow, going to be the guy that takes the first snap. So we'll call him the starter. But that being said, I would also like Brian Hartline now potentially being, the true offensive coordinator and the play caller with Julian Sand. I would also say what looks we're going to get from a defense, because it's not that Jeremiah Smith snuck up on anybody as the one of the top 5 recruits in all of college football last year, but to do what he did consistently all year long, to be your number 1 wide receiver, defenses now, have to know they have to stop him. And I think that's where Tate and Enos could have big years because of how much attention Jeremiah Smith's going to get. And then I'm going to stay on the offensive side of the ball for right now, because I think just finding the 5 or 6 guys on the offensive line that are gonna basically not lose a step on what we were able to do in the run game and pass protection standpoint to protect Julian Sand, allow him to throw that football down the field. So that's a challenge I look for. It's going to start and kind of end at the quarterback position. Not saying this that Julian Sand can't do it, or Lincoln Kienholz can do it either. It's just they haven't done it
right
with as much pressure at a school like Ohio State in a real game. So what's that going to look like, and who are those that supporting cast of wide receivers running the football on the ground, and of course that offensive line that protect him?
Yeah, it's funny because obviously they host Texas August 30th, season opener. There's a good chance these teams could be 1-2, 1-3, 2-3. Whatever mix and match you want to do, and at the beginning of the year, and really, unless this game is a ridiculous blowout by one or the other. They're both starting not first time. Well, Arch Manning started a couple of games for Texas, but he's an unproven commodity in terms of just being the guy, number 1 at quarterback. They lost almost as many guys to the draft as Ohio State did. A lot of people are kind of like short shrifting that. I go, no, they've got almost as big a reloading pangs as Ohio State does. And my point is, both of these teams are going to be so much better based on history, the way they improved last year. Both teams did. They're going to be so much better in November than they are on August the 30th. I'm not sure what this game is going to show.
And Tim, I'll just interrupt. It's like not only are they going to be so much better, but they're going to be so much different.
Yes,
because going into this game 1, the coaches are going to prepare based on what they think, is going to be their best 11 dudes on offense, best 11 dudes on defense.
Yes.
Then there's injuries and there's attrition. And the way that the season goes on, you make some, you move some dominoes around on the O line or D line, and so and so emerges in a given situation after a couple of weeks, and then they're starting to get more play. So not only are they going to be better, but they're going to be different. Because Brian Hartline as a play caller, Julian Sand after 10 games, the wide receiver core that I talked about, which running back emerges as the dude,
Right.
what 5 or 6 offensive line as they're trying to, Coach Tyler Bowen's trying to figure out who's best where, cross-training guys between 2 positions, given last year with, losing Seth McLaughlin and losing Simmons and having to shuffle, those guys around. I know that to be true, that Bowen is cross-training guys, they have an A position and a B position to be ready for anything down the road. So like they're going to be not only better, but they're going to be so different. It'll just look different and feel different after, 8, 9, 10 games under their belt.
Yeah. It's kind of like, to me, it's akin to, but that was middle of the season. Ohio State goes to Oregon and gets beat by 1 point. And then we saw the Rose Bowl,
Right.
Enough said. Right?
Absolutely. That's it. That's an amazing point to make. And that's exactly what I'm saying is like, and you had different guys in different spots. And, and Day was calling a game differently, a little bit more advantageous, in the latter and trusting his guys after playing a bunch of games as opposed to, after 4 games.
And defensively, they were different. I mean, it was like, hey, real quick before we move on, I want to get this in. I want to get this in because I want to get a little interview I was part of with Matt Patricia like a month or so ago out at Ohio State's Don Scott Field or airport because I thought it was very interesting that this guy how intelligent I think this dude is and how he thinks differently, let's say, than Jim Knowles. But then I want to talk to you about your pride and joy. You're going to have to be wearing that not Michigan blue, but that Carolina blue. Starting next year. Is blue by any other color still blue? No, because I got this, but it's not Michigan blue. But real quick, to stay on schedule here, which I don't ever do. Just your initial thoughts now that Ohio State's been through a spring with Matt Patricia, what you know of him reputation-wise coming out of the National Football League. I'm going to give you my thoughts quite up front. I really like this guy. I think the change from Jim Knowles to Matt Patricia, you're going from one guy who is considered to be a semi-genius in Jim Knowles to Matt Patricia, who is, in my opinion, a deep thinker, near borderline genius when it comes to defensive football from what he's shown in the past, except for with the Detroit Lions when he was a head coach and that flopped. He'll even tell you that. But the bottom line is I really like this guy. And as I told you when I interviewed Urban Meyer and Jim Trussell after the season was over about how do you handle success now? How do you go after a second straight championship, which neither one of them accomplished, by the way. Jim Trussell's big line was, if it ain't broke, break it. You heard that line. He was your head coach.
Yes, sir.
By hook or crook, that's exactly what Ryan Day has done with his coaching staff. You're bringing in, you didn't elevate a guy to coordinator. You got Tim Walton, who's sitting there who could be coordinator, but you brought in this breath of, I don't know if fresh air is the right term. Maybe it's highly oxygenated air. In Matt Patricia, a kind of a different way of looking at things. Number one, what does that mean for this team? And number two, what are your thoughts about Matt Patricia?
Well, actually, I'll kind of reverse it, and I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air, truthfully. And I think from a recruiting standpoint, and the fact that like Matt Patricia's, the lion's share of his coaching has been done in the NFL. It's actually, I mean, truthfully, not to make a segue, but like Bill Belichick at North Carolina, right? Yeah. You're going to bring this multiple system. I think what you're going to bring, 20 plus years of coaching at the NFL level. And I think while Jim Knowles was more like 4-2-5 and kind of multi, Matt Patricia is going to be multi. He's going to run that Belichick system. He's going to run that Patriot system. And I think what it does, he's going to have to get accustomed to working with 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds, right? And not professionals, just like Bill Belichick.
Right.
But he's going to recollect so much experience that he has in the National Football League and apply it to this defense and find spots where guys, and it might not be pure starter playing 60 snaps. He's going to rotate a guy in with a specific skill set and put him in a position to affect the game and benefit the Buckeyes. Whereas, sometimes you just get so caught up in my scheme is my scheme. Well, he's multi and he's coached many different places and with many different style of players. And I think what he'll do, and I think in some cases, he'll take what we have. He'll also probably give the feedback to Coach Day and Coach Pantoni when they watch film and go, I need defensive ends with this kind of length, with this kind of skill, with this. And then Pantoni's job is to go out and find Matt Patricia, guys that fit his scheme. So I'm very excited about Matt Patricia. I think also besides the X's and O's side of it, he's just a very smart man. He's a thinker, and I think he's a guy that's going to, again, as we've surrounded him, Matt Guerri and Tim Walton kind of being promoted to kind of co-pass game coordinators. You've got Larry Johnson, in his last couple of years, on the defensive line. And of course, our guy, James Laurinaitis, coach of the linebacker. So the staff is predominantly the same, but their roles are different. And I think the architect, is a little bit different, but he's going to play to the strengths of what the players can do, not just run a system, which I like.
See, real quick, before I get to that interview, I want to throw this in here because that's why I keep reminding people. They ask me, what's going to be different about his defense? Every defense has a quote structure to it in some form or fashion. As Jim Tressel used to tell Jim Haycock, just get lined up, meaning you better cover the damn gaps, right? I mean, you better be gap sound no matter what you throw out there. We've seen defenses that weren't and got eviscerated against good competition. But the great thing about Matt Patricia is in the NFL, matchups matter. And he was, with Bill Belichick, but almost every NFL defense coordinator in some form or fashion is astute in matchup play. That doesn't mean you always make the play, but they're really good at finding out, all right, I can take this guy away with this guy. I can save this guy to help take this guy away, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Right on down the line. Et cetera,
well, to your point, I think that's the chess match.
Yes.
That again, offenses are looking to motion and shift and line guys up in specific places to find the matchup they want to go attack. Right. And that's the chess match that Matt Patricia's been playing for 20 years at the highest level, and now he will apply to the Buckeye defense. Yeah,
it'll be fun to watch, especially when he's got an astute student of the game in Caleb Downs probably running the show out there. I mean, I know the linebackers will be very much involved, but Caleb Downs, in some form or fashion, he's going to be calling things on the field. He was last year, so that's not going to change, but it really helps. Like I said, I would love to have been Jesse Owens' track coach, right? I mean, let's work on that take. Let's work on that get off, Jesse, and otherwise run, man. Caleb Downs, hey, blah, blah, blah. But hey, man, you do your thing out there. But here, hey, let's get my quick little, I was in on an interview with him out at Don Scott Field when he talked to a group of Ohio State aviation or aviation engineering, aerospace type students who are trying to build an autonomous or in a competition to build an autonomous rescue flying vehicle. And he was out there talking to them about process when it comes to developing defenses or dealing with people, because it always comes down to dealing with people and people understanding pecking orders and how they fit into things. But let's get to this little conversation with Matt Patricia.
What's it like to kind of go back in the past here a little bit and talk about this with students today?
I mean, what a really special day for me to be able to kind of come and just have a conversation with these students that are, ingrained in an incredible project that they're working on, and see, kind of just where I put myself back in that spot, right? I was sitting in that seat and kind of had that mentality of, what can we build, what can we create, competition, all of it. So it was just a really fun experience to be able to kind of go back and, I love talking about planes. I love everything about what they're trying to do, and also connecting, I think what I do now and how I got to where I am now, and the lessons that I learned as an engineer in school. It's okay if you don't necessarily take that path and you kind of go in a little bit of a different direction, that you're still learning a lot of things that are going to carry over with you, as you go forward.
What spurred your interest in aviation?
So
you asked them that. I mean,
yeah. So being a child of the '80s, I was Top Gun. Yeah. I mean, that would probably say my number one thing. I wanted to be Maverick. I wanted to be a military pilot. I loved planes. I was a big Star Wars fan. Still am a big Star Wars fan. So space was a huge thing for me, and just kind of how cool all that was. So that was probably my initial, kind
Did
of
you already have an interest in aviation though before that, Coach?
You
you remember?
I would say just probably more on the military side.
Yeah.
Having grandparents that were in World War II and hearing the stories of all that they went through, I was always interested in kind of the military and certainly flight. And I would say going fast was probably something that I was pretty excited about. And
Yeah.
you can go pretty fast in planes.
Hey, I got here late, but I wanted to ask: do you have a license? Did you pursue a license? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a license. I did take flight lessons a long time ago.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm gonna 100% make sure one of these guys takes me up. We're
Yeah.
going up. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
When you were an engineering student?
Yeah, no, not when I was an engineering student. I mean, I was playing at the time. I think when I was a player, I didn't really think past anything besides playing the game. It really wasn't until my fifth year I kind of started started my MBA. I was going on the MBA engineering path, and I was coaching that fifth year. That really I turned from my playing passion, which I knew was over, into really the coaching passion. And coaching at that point in my life, I think, really kind of took off.
Did you find that there was more correlation than you would have thought there was?
I really did. I think for me, coaching, I kind of hit it at the right time too. There was a lot of technology coming into coaching. There was a lot of data coming into the video, and I kind of had that background. So the computer systems were just starting. They were just brand new, and I kind of knew how to use the computer and software, and I wrote a lot of programs that we used, and that was really my hook to get into coaching at the college level, and then eventually even at New England when I got there. Technology was blowing up in the sport, and I was at the forefront of it. I really understood it. So I kind of was always one of those situations where I was like, hey, I can get all this stuff for you really fast, really quick, and write some programs, but if you let me go, I'm going to delete all this. So in the meantime, teach me how to be a really good coach so I can do this for a long time. And so I think I hit coaching at the right point where my background actually was beneficial, in understanding technology was great. Along with all the things, like I mentioned, that I learned, my hard work, problem solving, things like that. That's really carried over in my coaching profession.
How important is it to have another thought in your brain necessarily besides football all the time? You understand, to have another passion.
Yeah.
Matt?
That's a great question. I would say I probably don't do a good enough job of that. I mean, if it's not football, it's going to be my family. My wife and kids are amazing, and I'm going to really neat. Like I said, a couple of weeks ago, we went down to Washington, D.C. with my oldest son, and to go to the Air and Space Museum and to go talk planes and look at and see planes with him as a 14-year-old through his eyes and see his excitement, it brought a lot back. It was really cool. That was fun.
Have y'all been to Dayton to the Air Force Museum?
I haven't yet.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
someone actually told me about that.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
excited
packed.
to get up there.
Hey, last thing for me, explain to people what the tie-in is of everything has some kind of system, right? I mean, you understand what a defense works off a system of some sort,
Yeah.
airplanes, et cetera, become a pilot, et cetera. Is that what interests you as much as the aviation and the football, is the putting the pieces together?
Yeah, I think the problem solving, putting the pieces
Yeah.
together, the process, I think everything has a process. Football definitely has a process, and I enjoy that very much, And I think all the fundamental parts of football, from the fundamental to the play, there's an engineering that goes involved with that, of how you teach it, how you create it, how you construct it, and then de-engineering that, going all the way down to the detail of it. That's in my wheelhouse. I enjoy that a lot.
Do you often, about this background at all, have you ever had that conversation, kind of diving into the analytics of it all?
Not too much. A little bit sometimes when we get into the software and some of the stuff that we're doing from an analytical standpoint. Absolutely. I think they see that come through. Not a lot of times when I get to my level of planes, I'll eventually, talk about a favorite plane, a A-10 Warthog. I'm like, we'll spin off in some sort of conversation. I think everyone stops and kind of looks at me a little bit like, okay, you know a lot about this. Why? And then it's like, well, we all have other passions too, and I love talking about planes. It's really cool.
There's an airplane built around a great idea, a tremendous gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Hey, by the way, what for the record, your favorite Top Gun is which one?
Oh, the first.
First one. And why is that?
Just because it's the original.
Yeah, see, number one, like I've told people, he got me, man, when I found out he was an aviation buff, because Tim May, I soloed in a Cessna 150 on my 16th birthday, back in Texas, and I had some moments in an airplane, which which were interesting, which weren't my fault, but well, maybe they were because I meandered into something I shouldn't have one time. But I won't get into that on this show. I won't bore people with me having a near-death experience. Uh, but uh, but Matt Patricia, man, there's some depth to this guy that I really like, and I don't know about you. I don't hold the Detroit Lions situation against him because you know what? Number one, there are horses for courses and courses for horses, and that's an overused term. But sometimes you're either not ready to be a head coach, you're not cut out to be a head coach, or the situation you go into doesn't fit what you've been all about, which is, the last many years when you were working with Bill Belichick, there was a lot of exchange going on there. I would think head coach to defensive coordinator, that all of a sudden now you may not be working with the same kind of exchange student for one of another term.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and there's a bunch of great coaches out there, again, that position themselves to be ready to become a head coach.
Yeah.
And they think they want to be one. And then they go interview for those jobs. And in some cases, I don't want to say they talk anybody into it, but the interview goes amazing because, again, there's a lot of prep for those interviews as well. And, the owners are bought in, and it sounds, it feels, it all happens. And it's like, it all really feels great. And some guys just aren't cut out to be a head coach. And that's okay. And some guys are lifelong coordinators for a reason. Some guys are just okay being a position coach because they just can't. Maybe they're not a motivator. Maybe they don't see the game. If a DB coach only sees the game as a corner or safety, but can't see it or understand, gap integrity and be able to teach it. And in many cases, guys maybe don't want to put themselves out on the line to get hired and fired.
Yeah.
Which is also a part of football. It's inevitable. You're going to get hired or fired a bunch if you're going to be a coach.
Yeah.
And again, everybody's finding that out eventually. So yeah, I don't hold it against him either. I think he's an amazing dude. He's a smart guy. I think he's got an immense amount of experience, and he's got a great staff there at Ohio State. And I think that he will be able to maybe pivot faster schematically, given his experience, than maybe we have seen in the past.
You're going to probably disagree with me. I'm going to throw this out there because I've watched a lot of head coaches come and go at Ohio State. And what differentiates a head coach, like you just said, from a career assistant or coordinator, is like you said, they see the big picture, and the big picture has so much to do with stuff that is not football, but it's pushing buttons. Urban Meyer is one of the great button pushers of all time. You know what I'm talking about buttons. Everybody's got a button. That's it's going to be okay button and a kick in the butt button.
Correct.
He was able to find all those. I really thought Jim Trussell, and you may disagree, I thought he would have been a very good National Football League head coach because he sees the big picture. Number one, number two, he's organized to the nth degree. He can delegate. I mean, he proved at Ohio State. Well, when he left, he left a void on the offensive side because he was the offensive runner. You know what I mean? No matter how you shaped it up, because we saw what happened in 2011 without him. But a lot of things were going on in 2011 that had nothing to do without him and some other guys, right?
Yes.
But he understood about building a program, building this, forget about the X's and O's part of the system, but everything else, making you guys learn, Carmen, Ohio, and making you understand the history of Ohio State football. I'm just saying if he had been hired at the Browns, he would have made them, understand Jim Brown and what he meant and Paul, but he would have been steeped in that because you got to be playing for something other than yourself.
Yeah.
And I thought he was really good at fostering that. Do you agree?
I do agree. And I think that's what, in some cases, there's been times in Ohio State football in the last maybe 10 to 15 years that's kind of been not having that depth in the players that are brought into that building might have led to a lack of emphasis about what Ohio State represents to the state of Ohio, what Ohio State beating Michigan each and every year we have that opportunity actually means to the state of Ohio and the largest alumni base in the world from a specific university. You get great players, But if there's no depth, if they've never been taught anything beyond X's and O's, or maybe looked at anything but themselves and how can I get better and how can I be a great player and how can I go do more for, for myself out on the football field, and to think, again, see the big picture about what an Ohio State degree means, what that alumni base means and how it can serve you for the next 50 years of your life.
Yes.
And learning about your teammates, and being put in a situation to care about someone besides yourself, which is hard for 17, 18-year-old superstars, coming into a university. And I think, frankly, and again, I'm sure we've talked about it before, but like, I thought there was a lack of understanding of the game in that building, where it kind of had it's like, fine, I just want to win a national championship, then I just want to go get drafted into the NFL. And,
stepping stone.
Yeah, correct. And I think there was a void in that for a little period of time. And I think that we're getting back to that emphasis that
I
Coach
agree.
Tressel and the depth that you have to drive into these young men when they arrive on campus.
Yeah, the camaraderie on last year's team. That's the thing. You know this, Matt. You played on I don't know how many football teams. Probably, I'm talking about different years. Probably 25, maybe.
Yeah.
Counting high school, even counting intermediate school or
sure.
middle school and stuff. Chemistry. Everybody wants to ask at the beginning of the year, what's the chemistry on this team like? Well, you don't know.
No.
There has to be a reaction, a catalyst and a reaction at some point in a season that tells you what it's all about. And for example, the greatest example last year, forever, was after the Michigan game, the team meeting, where it finally was Ryan Day and the players, and finally it was the players, and they end the meeting when it's just the players with a prayer circle. Dude, that was a coming together that's unprecedented, because then they had to go win 4 games. You guys, you had to win 1 game to win a national championship. I'm talking, you had to win, you had to win 12 to get in position, or what was it, 13 to get in position. But then you had to win 1 game to win a national championship in 2002. These guys had to go on a run. And what a run. I mean, what a way to start this playoff era. So we're not going to know about the chemistry of this team in some form or fashion until they face adversity. See, adversity was not the Oregon game. The Oregon game pointed out some flaws, and it was also a game that you could have won with one more step here or there. The Michigan game was different. That was a 23-point underdog that kicked your butt in your own stadium.
Yep.
In your own stadium. And there were mistakes made by players and coaches in that game. And yet, instead of just disintegrating or going like a hand grenade, they came together. Wow. Now.
Yeah, and I think that's what speaks to the type of man and the type of leader that Ryan Day is. Because the team, he is the leader, the coaches and the players to receive the right calibration.
Yeah.
To move, to talk about it, address it, and then put it in the right bucket and move on.
Yeah, don't let it fester.
To play in the playoff. Because again, it's something like that could continue to fester, and it could affect your next opportunity also being played in the same stadium. You just got your butt kicked in, right, against a very good Tennessee football team. So I just thought it was the right calibration. It was the right message. I think it just goes to show, like I said, Ryan Day is a winner. He's also an amazing human. And I think in that moment, you got your $10 million of money worth in whatever they pay him to take this team in this broken status and flip it on its head and go on the run that they did to win a national championship.
Yeah. I talked to him about that in his office like a couple of months later and stuff. And I just go, that's the textbook you want. If I'm a coach, I want to read from the 2024 season. That's the textbook chapter I want to read about, and forget about all the other stuff. Recruiting, everything, NIL, right on down the line. That's part of it. But finally, you got the ingredients. Are you going to bake a cake or what?
Absolutely.
Hey, speaking of baking a cake, young man who I've watched way too much video of, because that's how screwed up I am at night when I don't sleep. I'm watching highlights of Caleb Downs or Tavian St. Clair or whatever. But there was this young man who grew up in really kind of a uh, I don't know, not privileged household, but his name's Mason Rudolph, Mason Wilhelm. And you kind of going, is he going to be a big time football player like his dad? He's not going to be a linebacker
Nope.
because he kept growing. And my bottom line is, you and I talked about it on the air a little bit last year, off the air a lot. His journey from being almost a little bit overlooked as a recruit right
Yep.
on through last year. Like I said, if you turn on some video of him, I can see him playing almost anywhere, in the
Yep.
country because he kept getting bigger and he kept getting smarter, if that's the right term. A lot of
Yep.
guile involved there, a lot of moxie that not even a dad can really imbue. It has to come from within. And boom, all of a sudden now he gets offered by the University of North Carolina and its new head coach, Bill Belichick, and new general manager, Jordan Hudson. No, I just threw that in there. Well, she might be the general manager. Who knows? She's running almost everything else. And he commits to North Carolina Blue. Like I said a while ago, you got to be proud of your son, man, because, Ohio State was interested in him, but, didn't quite make that offer. And like you and I texted about a lot, there are a lot of opportunities out there. Don't just put all your eggs in one basket. And if it doesn't happen, that's disappointing because there were 14 players drafted from Ohio State in the National Football League draft, but about 300 or so from other places. So
Yeah, absolutely.
just number one, proud's not the right term because I think pride comes before the fall and stuff. But you've got to be impressed by the way your son finally has gotten after it, got that offer, big time offer, and has committed. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm immensely proud, and I think that the one thing that I've said to everybody, and it's actually his trainer, Chase Ferris, who played at Elyria, played at Ohio State. He
Yes.
works with him on a weekly basis, and kind of took him in as this this rough project type of kid, well over a year ago, and has turned him into this kind of like finished technical product. Who's chasing development is. He was like, man, whatever this kid gets here, he has earned. Because from where I got him to where he is now, just goes to show that it's like, and it's kind of what my wife and I've been, ingrained in him is, man, it's just like, dude, put your head down and work, and I'll tell you when to pick it up and when it's good enough, right?
Yeah.
And he's just really embraced it. He's embraced, my guidance from a football standpoint. I think my wife's guidance from an academic standpoint. So in some cases, it's kind of a perfect storm. For him, he just worked his butt off. St. Edward is the perfect opportunity for him to not get comfortable because they have great players, year in, year out. He sat behind the Armstrong twins there at Ohio State, Ben Roebuck, who's playing up at the team up north. And so his opportunity came, he seized it. And I think it's just, we're just super happy. We kind of took the process, and it was fluid for us. We didn't get too high or low on any offers. I think that, as it pertains to the Buckeyes, I did have a conversation with Coach Bowen the other day and, just mentioned that, their process is ever evolving as, some of these 4-star, 5-star kids, want a lot of money,
Yeah.
to come to that school. And there may be other places, predominantly in the SEC, that are also going to pay them a lot of money.
Yep.
So, the door's not closed on a potential opportunity for Ohio State, but like just to talk North Carolina, and I think it's actually like an indirect segue back to your conversation and bringing up Matt Patricia, because, North Carolina is the Patriot way in Chapel Hill. Bill Belichick is going to run that program the way that he ran the New England Patriots.
Yep.
So it might not be a top 10 recruiting class in any year Bill Belichick's there. But Bill, because they were winning 12 plus games every year, always had, a draft pick late in the draft. They were always very strategic. They always traded down. They always developed their players. They went a lot like the Packers. They wanted to draft a guy and develop a player. So North Carolina was a perfect storm. And here's for us. And here's the reason why is we were chasing in our recruiting process 3 things. We wanted winning football. which, North Carolina, even with Mac Brown, on both of his stints in North Carolina, won, and when I say win, I don't necessarily mean compete for a national championship win. And I kind of had a feeling that like a program like that is a better fit for that like North Carolina, that's, I'll say 7 to 10 games every year, going to a really cool bowl game is a better fit for my son than that gun to your head, like, beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, and win a national championship, or your season's a failure.
Or else.
Not really. That was just never. I mean, again, it may be a situation for him soon. I don't know. But we chased winning football. We chased development as a player because he's still just 17 years old. He's just still learning the game. So putting him in a situation, with Belichick and the staff that he's going to put together in a place to develop him as a player, and everywhere in the North Carolina program, it is be a pro, be a pro, be a pro, be a pro. It's just, again, tough, smart, dependable, things that Bill Belichick's been talking about for 30 years, just like Nick Saban, tough, smart, dependable. And I think that's a great depiction of who my son is tough, he's smart, he's dependable. And I think lastly, the side that in some cases might get overlooked is the academics. North Carolina is a public Ivy League school. It's a top 25 education in the country. So it's an opportunity to also get down to some better weather, as we, gosh, at Oakmont, we're getting dumped on in the middle of June, So it's an opportunity to get to some nicer climate. And we're super happy. I think we canceled official visits with West Virginia, Maryland, and Pitt after we committed. And we kind of just shut it down, and we get our summer back. He gets to focus on his senior year. He will, again, our goal collectively, as I am coaching again at St. Ed's, is to go win a state championship, which is going to be very tough to do in Division I in Ohio. It's always very, very loaded with a lot of talent. And then he'll early enroll. So he will be done in December and, on campus there, starting class January 8th in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And Bill Belichick and his staff, are going to just mold him into the player that, continue to mold him into the player that I think he's capable of. So it's a very exciting time for us.
Obviously, you had to have been in on a conversation with Bill Belichick in this process, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So after
what impressed
offer,
you? Go ahead. But what impressed you most about he is into this? If you follow my drift.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the perception outside looking in is all about Bill's age. Bill having his sons on staff, and then obviously, as you mentioned earlier, the girlfriend and whatever role she has in North Carolina football. But when you're there, and we were there for 3 days, it's like you get Bill as we know Bill outside looking in from his time with the Patriots. It's, he's smiling and smirking a little bit more than usual because he has to, because he's recruiting 17 and 18-year-olds and their families, right?
Yeah.
But it's not laughy jokey. It's business. And I think that scenario, truthfully, for my son, given I love winning and, development. And of course, we mutually, my wife and I both want high education. It's the perfect situation to where you're on a college campus, you can have some fun, but not too much fun. You have to be accountable to this opportunity that's in front of you. And, like you talked about, the kid's going to get, a $400,000 education. He's going to be a part of the revenue sharing. He's going to potentially negotiate some NIL deals. Yep. And it's big business. And so I'd rather have him go to a program. And I'm not trying to say that it's the only one out there. We know there's a bunch more, but I want to put him in a situation to be there be parameters and and have him go thrive the way that we've kind of as parents had him go. And I think that's also why strategically we had North Carolina #1 on his official visit list. Is we felt all these things. We knew all these things about North Carolina and Coach Belichick, but we had to go see it and feel it,
Yeah.
And I'll just say this. The coolest thing about it is, I told Mason, I said, hey man, if you're going to commit, tell mom and I instead of just going to do it. Yeah. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, for sure. I absolutely will. So we're in a meeting with Belichick, and it's the director of player personnel who we brought with him from New England, and Bill sitting across from my wife, Mason, and myself on the couch. And we're talking about football and music and Chapel Hill and the Patriots and when they used to beat the Chargers every year. So we're all talking all kinds of topics. And then we get into like, how many offensive linemen are you going to take? You're going to take 4, you're going to take 6, and he went into that. And then it just kind of was time. And I'm like nudging Mason, like, dude, are you going to commit or not? Like, he hadn't said anything yet.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be rude because, the greatest coach, NFL coach of all time or football coach of all time is talking. And I don't want to be rude and interrupt him.
Yeah.
So, but it gets to the point where there's really nothing else to say. And so, and you've been in those business, conversations where it's like, yeah, everything's been taught, you can like, okay, all right. And so I just kind of stand up and we kind of shake hands and Mason just goes, well, hey coach, like you said, you're taking 6 or taking 5 and you've got who committed now? And he's like, oh, we got this kid from here. We got this kid from here. And Mason goes, well, coach, you got your 3rd commit from Ohio because I want to be a Tar Heel. So, and of course it was like, bro, why did you tell me? And then my wife gets all emotional and obviously there's some hugs and some handshakes and all kinds of stuff. So it was just an amazing moment because, he and I have been on this journey for, some time now. And I've been there right lock and step with him to evaluate, these opportunities. And he's somewhere where he wants to be. He's somewhere where he's going to be happy. And we can't be more excited about that opportunity and what the next 5 or 6 or 5 years are going to look like, down in North Carolina.
Yeah. Don't you think the current climate in college football, college athletics, but mainly big time college football, favors Bill Belichick in the ability? I mean, it's pro football now.
It does, and again, that's my bridge. I guess I can say on what we loved about Bill Belichick being the head coach and holding his assistants accountable is everything that we think we're going to get from Bill Belichick and his staff. I think you're going to get from a Matt Patricia and his coaches, on defense at Ohio State.
Yeah.
There's a way of doing things. There's a severity to it. There's a thought to all of it. You just don't do things to do things. And it's all very, very well thought out. And I also think from a recruiting standpoint, there's that development piece, that be a pro piece. Say Bill Belichick's got a Super Bowl, right? But he's coached 30 plus years in the National Football League between the Giants and the Browns and being head coach as long as he was in the Patriots. It's like, if you want to be an NFL football player, go get coached by a coach that is coached in the NFL. And I think that's the gift that the current Buckeyes get in Matt Patricia, at least on defense. And I think that's also a part of a sell when you walk into a house is like, okay, Ohio State puts guys in the NFL every year, but we're going to put guys more ready to play and get drafted higher by coming to us because you're kind of being molded by a guy who's got, 20 plus years of coaching in the National Football League. So, and he can be your coordinator for the next 5.
Yeah.
So that's such a tool and such a gift.
Yeah. Tim Walton, same thing, on that defensive staff. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Brian Hartline played in the National Football League just like you for a long time.
Just like James Laurinaitis did at linebacker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Hey, last thing before you go, because, every answer opens another question, at least in Tim May's mind. How were you assured, for want of another term, that Bill Belichick is in it for the long haul, meaning 3 years or more? Or did he even say that?
He did not say that. And frankly, again, to take you behind the curtain, I thought about that going into this official visit because that in many cases is probably the only knock.
Yeah.
Not trying to say that North Carolina can't continue without Bill Belichick because he's going to have an amazing staff. And maybe his son, Steve, takes over, who's, been a coordinator at the college and professional level before. And maybe a few years from now, he'll be, ready to take over North Carolina. I don't know. Yeah. But I did my very best to drum up a question in my head ahead of our sit down with Bill Belichick. I'm going, well, how long are you going to be here in North Carolina? So what I did was, and this is typical Bill Belichick, is I said, hey, coach, I know you don't have a crystal ball and neither do I, but I go, what does Carolina football look like in 5 years to you? Yeah. And I kind of wanted to trap him, right? To go, well, I see competing for the ACC, playing in the college football playoff and blah, 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 top 20 recruiting classes every year. And he just goes, you know what? We just got to put our heads down and work and stack days. Good day today, good day tomorrow, and it's like, again, just recruits like your son. We got to get a recruit like your son, then we got to get another one, and then we get another one. I go, and he threw me back the Patriot way, typical Bill Belichick answer about like just stacking bricks and like trusting the process and not looking too far ahead. and all these other things. And I'll be honest, like I walked away, so I walked into it a little leery. And then the more that I've actually, like, you follow everything North Carolina, and people are following Mason, and, he's doing interviews, all this other stuff. It's the one thing that I can say, and again, he can leave tomorrow, is he didn't come here to leave.
Yeah.
So I think in some cases, and that's, the what we have is we have the opportunity to go there. I know we won't play for him this year, but when we get there, in January of next year, if it's 24 months with Bill Belichick, we're going to soak it up and we're going to take it all in. If it's, 48 months, that'd be an amazing gift. I know he's no spring chicken, but he's got such an amazing way of leading men and winning football games and developing young men. And I think that's what's very attractive to us about North Carolina, and we want to be a part of.
Yeah, I was going to say the thing that stands out about Nick Saban, about Urban Meyer, Jim Trussell, Pete Carroll, right on down the line, the guys who have done it at the highest level in one form or fashion and everything, is really, bottom line is no excuses. I don't want to hear excuses. I want to see work. If you do the work, I'm going to have the plan. I'm going to have the plan to win. And it's going to work. It's proven. As Urban Meyer and I talked about a bunch. He and I did a podcast for a couple of years there before. Now he's spring loaded into a higher time in that regard. But yeah, you follow the plan, you do the work, there's going to be success. Is it going to be ultimate success? Hey, it has been in the past for some people, but the bottom line is, wow, you're going to leave there having understood what it takes to be a success, whether you achieve that in football or not. And that's what intrigues me about this Bill Belichick situation. Is, like you said, he could get an offer next year from the NFL and be gone again. He didn't get one, which is why he's in college football. Matt Patricia didn't get one, which is why he's in college football this year. You understand what I'm saying about him? And sometimes you got to go recheck yourself to show people what you are truly all about, that you are that special kind of leader. So I'm very fired up for Mason, man. Just getting to be in on meetings and are in and around one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all times. I would think you are too.
And I think that, I've done my very best, given we play different positions, but even, gosh, we're playing Madden at night since Mason was 10 years old. And I'm teaching him, middle open, middle closed defense. And I'm teaching him fronts and I'm teaching him blitzes. And then he starts running them against me and I'm throwing, a pick into robber coverage. And he's just like, throwing in my face that he's playing robber. He's playing trap 2. And I'm like throwing a pick into the, I throw the pick into the flat because he's like never been trapped. So he's learned the game from me, but I can only give him so much because I'm still just dad, right?
Yes.
And so I have to take that hat off and just be his dad and nurture him and guide him and, and love him the way that he is. And it's just and again, there's a lot of amazing universities. And the hard part was telling a lot of these offensive line coaches that were also, recruiting Mason super hard, like, hey, sorry, but we just feel like our son is going to be, I say grinded, if that makes sense, and molded in the best way possible, both academically and from a football standpoint, by this crew down in North Carolina. He's gonna make some amazing friends. He's got, the tight end from Cooper McCutcheon, who's a great tight end from Moeller, who we play every year, is committed to go there.
Yep.
And so there's another kid from Menor who they're trying to get to recruit to go there. So he's spreading his net. They're building from the inside out, which is also very encouraging, meaning like they're really going to focus on the lines. So again, it's a very exciting time. We're super happy. And the last thing I'll say, because this is like, a show that we usually do that's centered around, Ohio State football. And I give my son a lot of credit for this, is like, if Ohio State was a player or will be a player in the game, potentially down the road, and things do, evolve in the next like 6 months or whatever, I can honestly say, like, Mason's been around Buckeye football, so he knows what it represents, and it would be an honor for him to be a Buckeye. But I would also say, and I give him credit for this, like, his lifelong dream is not necessarily to wear a Buckeye uniform.
Yeah.
And it's not anything against it. It's just like, there's something to be said about wanting to blaze his own trail and earn it. And that's the one thing I say to Coach Day and Coach Pantoni. I go, man, if there's a favor or if there's some legacy BS attached to a potential offer at some point for Mason, I go, he's the wrong kid because he'll say thanks, but no thanks. And he'll go the other way and he'll just stay committed.
Yeah.
He wants to he's either good enough or he's not. And he wants to be wanted. And that's why we're in on the places that we're in on us. And Michael Lombardi, the real general manager, and Bill Belichick in North Carolina have loved on him hard and really feel like he can be something special. So we're excited about that.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to even ask another question because this thing would go on for another 45 minutes to 4 hours. Once again, Matt Wilhelm, it's great to hook up with you. I don't know if we're the fabulous duo. It's more like you're a fabulous solo, and I'm just over here trying to play.
Oh, it's pilot, co-pilot.
Pilot,
co-pilot.
co-pilot.
I don't mind being a co-pilot.
I let the co-pilot fly the plane a lot because, I am getting up in age. You know what I mean? But,
yes, sir.
Eyesight's going. But anyway, hey, Matt, plenty more down the road, man. Are you ready for it?
Absolutely. You got it, man. I'm excited. Again, the Buckeyes are going to be very special again. It's going to be different. And, and again, that's just naturally through this recruiting process. I am so in tune to college football with everything going on and not so much the NFL game, which is going to be make for an exciting bunch of shows this upcoming season.
Yeah, we'll talk about a bunch of other things the next time we hook up. But ladies and gentlemen, for Matt Wilhelm, this is Tim May. This has been the Tim May Show. Until next time, we'll see you then.